There we are. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our first online learning event of the year. Today is January 22nd, 2026. Can you believe it? Today, we are presenting to you Youth Healing and Wellness Courts 101, what you need to know. We are a part of the Tribal Youth Resource Center, and we're so glad you're here. And welcome, everyone. It's so nice to see you here. Before we get started, this project was supported by this grant award shown here, awarded by the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, Office of Justice Programs, U.S. Department of Justice. The opinions, findings, and conclusions or recommendations expressed in this online learning event are those of us and not necessarily reflect those of the Department of Justice. You could learn more about our funding streams by visiting tribalyouth.org. We are part of Tribal Law and Policy Institute. We're dedicated to providing free publication resources, comprehensive training, and technical assistance for Native nations and tribal justice systems in pursuit of our vision to empower Native communities to create and control their own institutions for the benefit of all community members now and for future generations. You can learn more about Tribal Youth Resource Center and all of our programs by visiting home.clpi.org. And we're the Tribal Youth Resource Center. We envision a future where Indigenous youth thrive through traditional lifeways, enhancing the opportunities for Indigenous communities to expand their potential in protecting and nurturing their most sacred asset, the youth. And again, you could learn more about us by visiting tribalyouth.org. Again, we're so glad you're here and welcome. And now it's my honor to present to you Judge Pat. And here you are, Pat.
Thank you, Ashley. So welcome, everybody. My name is Pat Sikehwaptiwa, and I'm Hopi. I'm a tribal judge. I'm the Chief Justice of the Hopi Appellate Court in Arizona. But more importantly today, I am the National Youth Healing to Wellness Court team lead for training and technical assistance to tribes that receive CTAS Purpose Area 8 grants. It's like an alphabet soup of introduction here. That is my daytime job, my full-time job. And I have been working with wellness courts and drug courts for almost a little over 30 years now. So I'm happy to be here, and let me hand things off to my co-presenter, Erin Thinelk.
Thanks, Pat. Mitakiape chante washte nape chusapi. Wanaksha tokahe hinapewi. My name is Erin Thinelk. My Lakota name is First Flower That Blooms Woman. I am a mother, a grandmother. I'm an Indigenous social worker and a TA specialist for the Youth Healing to Wellness Court. So I'm really glad that you are all here. Good morning, good afternoon, and I'm coming to you from a very cold Minnesota.
And hello again, everyone. My name is Ashley Anderson. I am the Training and Technical Assistance Specialist with the Tribal Youth Resource Center, Youth Healing and Wellness Courts. Yes, it's alphabet soup, and my lovely colleagues are here with me today. If you need anything, feel free to reach out, ashleya@tlpi.org. And with us today also is our beautiful Andy Dickerson. She's behind the scenes doing the presentation and the chat box. And if you need anything, feel free to reach out to us via our emails or the chat. And you might also see a few familiar names. Chris Crestus is here too. He's one of our technical assistant specialists. So if you need anything, we've got a full room of support. All right, Judge Pat, back to you.
Okay, so our global learning objectives for this next hour and a half are three. We hope to increase your understanding of what our tribal youth are experiencing with alcohol and substance use in Indian country today. Second, we want to talk to you and increase your understanding of what interventions, supports, and services tribal youth who are court involved and who have alcohol and substance use, what they need. That's a particular crossover or cohort of Native youth. And then the third learning objective is to share the Youth Healing to Wellness Court model and the benchmarks and standards that go with it, which are called the tribal key components. The long name is the key components of tribal healing to wellness courts. So that's our big picture approach today, and I'm going to hand things off to Erin next. Next slide.
All right. Thank you, Judge Pat. Okay, so before we dive into the core of the presentation, we really want to have some time to hear from you all. And this first question, we're really looking at after the youth goes through your youth wellness court, what attributes or characteristics do you hope that they will have? So after they go through your youth healing to wellness court, what attributes or characteristics do you want your youth to emerge from the program with? And we have a few examples up on the screen there, having gained coping skills to help them with maybe anger or with substance use, working with them on goal setting for their life goals and wellness, improving their education, getting those scores up and the attendance at the school, helping increase stability within themselves and the family. Okay, it looks like we definitely have some coming in the chat box. So Alicia, you said confidence. Absolutely. Eva, it's so good to see that you're here. Welcome. Yes, a sense of purpose for their lives. Absolutely. Eva also said a positive self-image, Lane, empowerment. Donna, walking the good red road. Yes. Recovery from substances, self-confidence, a strengthened support system. Absolutely. That is beneficial during and after for recovery and wellness. Jacqueline, to be very proud of their roots. Absolutely. Knowing they have safe, positive adults in their lives. Love of culture and tradition. Oh, I love that. Absolutely. And also, Ava said knowledge of tribal history and the family tree. Knowing their worth, security. Wonderful. Thank you. These are all absolutely great. It's so important to just be in the present moment here and gather with one another on what is our vision for the youth and why are you here and what you hope to build. So these are all such wonderful attributes and values and goals to be always keep in mind as you are looking at developing your youth healing to wellness court. Thank you so much. We'll go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay, so the next question that we want to engage with are, what are some of the characteristics or challenges of youth that are typically eligible for a youth healing to wellness court? So when you're looking at who your population of youth that you are trying to support, to outreach to be eligible for your youth healing to wellness court, what are some of the characteristics or challenges do you think those youth would be coming into the program with? You can see we have a couple of examples on the screen, and it looks like we definitely have some feedback coming in already. Ability to handle or get through adversity, absolutely. Unresolved grief of losing family members. Trauma, yes. Getting coping skills to work through the trauma, identifying triggers. Anger. Buy-in and support, yes, absolutely. Our partners are critical to the success of a youth healing to wellness court. They might be coming in with low self-worth, yes, our youth might. Feeling neglected, peer pressure to try vaping and other substances. Absolutely, Elaine, we have definitely seen vaping increase in our communities, and it's very concerning, especially with our youth vaping THC. Ava, being unseen and unheard, absolutely, and we know being healing informed is really giving them the autonomy to have their voice heard and having choice in their wellness plan development. Distrust in the system, absolutely. Neglect, the feeling of worthlessness and that they do not have a purpose in their lives. Having too many adult responsibilities put at them at a young age and raising younger siblings and cousins. Mhm. Absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much. That's wonderful. It looks like you guys have really been thinking about the youth in your community and already goal setting for ideas on your youth healing to wellness court development and the youth that you want to support. Thank you so much. I will pass it back to, I believe, Judge Pat. Oh, there's one more. Okay. All right. One more, guys. Thank you so much for hanging in there. What things might your youth that are going into Youth Healing to Wellness Court need from your tribal government, from tribal administration? The director of behavioral health, the director of child services, the director of education for the tribe, the school board from the local school. What are some of the things that the youth might need? Safe adults and safe spaces. Consistency, absolutely. Stability and consistency is key to laying a wellness foundation. Recognition, yes. Advocacy and support. Family therapy. Advocacy, absolutely. Knowing they're part of their community. Knowing there's a big world out there besides the res. Oh, I like that one. That really can open up the possibility of so many things for them and their goal setting. Cultural reconnection, absolutely. We know that cultural connection is one of the most important protective factors for our youth healing and wellness and reduction of substance use and suicidality. Our elected officials and appointed officials need to think about our children when making important decisions. Absolutely. Everything seems to revolve around adults. I always find that just a little bit challenging for me when we have a youth gathering and then all of a sudden the adults take over talking when it's the youth that we're supposed to be hearing from. So absolutely. Feeling seen and education is where we have our power now, and to value education. Absolutely wonderful. Thank you guys all so much.
Thank you so much, Erin, for grounding us all in why we're here and why we're doing what we're doing. And as a backdrop to the technical stuff we have to know to get money to do those things. So I think I would like to start out our conversation today, and we are doing a What Are Youth Health Wellness Courts 101 session today. I anticipate that our audience is a combination of folks who are thinking of applying for a CTAS Purpose Area 8 grant with OJJDP. And we may have new staff members or coordinators with already funded wellness courts. So we kind of have a dual audience here. Sometimes we may talk as though we're working with a funded grantee, but we really want to invite more tribes to apply for these funds and set up this model with the cultural tailoring and local tribal tailoring. All right, so in order to apply for this money, we have to start with the data, but not just to apply for the money. We have to start with the data to design the model or the court that we're developing. The premise here is that our tribes and tribal courts will design a youth healing to wellness court that meets the local needs of youth and given the substance use trends of where you are, and they vary from place to place, there are national trends, but we can kind of see different pivots depending on where you are in the country. So designing a wellness court is also about understanding what is needed and what the substance use trends are in your community. And this is going to require certain kinds of data because the planners and the grant writers will need to collect and interpret different baskets of data to write the grant proposal. So they may need to have the data, they will need to have the data on juvenile offenses, whether that is in tribal court or county court, school attendance and conduct for the schools where most of your youth are, particularly high schools, substance use trends in your area. And we can talk with Chris Questis if a question pops up about how on earth do you figure that out. And then accessible treatment in your area, whether it's on or off the reservation or Indian country. We're going to start out now looking at the national trends that we can document. We have to work with the data we have because there's a lot of holes of data in Indian country. But we can only do what we can do, right? So we'll find the data we can find, and I'll start with the national data. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Before I do that, I'm going to have Erin run us through a polling question.
Okay, thank you, Judge Pat. All right, so we're talking about data so that we can be data-driven and knowledgeable of historical archival data, perhaps that has already been collected, and then trying to find out what is the most recent data. So with that in mind, where would you go to find data to learn what substances youth are using in your community? And there's no wrong answer at all. So go ahead and feel free to look at the variables listed and click on whatever ones resonate with where you think you can find data for the youth that are using substances in your community. And we'll give you just a minute or two here to read through that and go ahead and click on what variable applies to your community. I'm going to go ahead and read that again just in case anyone has just joined. This is a poll. If you could look at it and see where would you go to find data to learn about substances youth are using in your community. Again, there's no wrong answers, so feel free to click whatever variables apply to substance use, excuse me, from youth in your community. I'll just check in with either Andy or Ashley to see if we are almost done with the majority of responses.
Sure. Aaron, we've got about 57% who participated, so we'll give everyone just a little bit more time to read through.
Okay, thanks, Andy. And if you're unsure, it's fine. If you're absolutely sure, just check those off. This is just going to engage us in this beginning steps of where we find our data and maybe give us some ideas going forward. Okay. All right. So Andy, I'm guessing we could probably wrap up.
You bet.
Thank you so much. All right. It looks like the majority have said definitely looking at juvenile court or probation data, but it looks like across the board, a lot of people responded and chose all the variables, the treatment center, local treatment center, whether it's tribal or non-tribal, the local school data, youth surveys, absolutely, especially if they participate in the youth behavioral surveillance system. Tribal health and behavioral health programs, absolutely. Community or tribal surveys, great resource. I would really like to encourage you to speak with your community to see if they've had any SAMHSA, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration grants in the past, because a lot of times they require public health data collection. So definitely reach out, see if there's been a Native Connections grant from SAMHSA, a SPIF TIG or a SPIF SIG, a strategic planning framework grant from SAMHSA, and a lot of state grants also require some sort of data collection. Yes, state or national data sources. And then, yeah, okay, I'm not sure where to find this information. Absolutely. Totally understand. And that is why we are here to share some ideas with you. Thank you so much. We'll go ahead and close. Oh, we have one more. Okay, so which of these do you think is most important when reviewing youth data? To understand trends in substance use from the youth and their system involvement, to identify gaps in services and supports, to assess whether the Youth Healing to Wellness Court needs to make adjustments to processes, phases, and the design of the court, or four, not sure yet. So please just take a moment and click on the variable or variables that you believe are the most important when reviewing your youth data in the community. I'll give you probably a couple more seconds to read through and to click the variable that speaks to you about the substance use data for your youth in the community. And I'll just check in with Andy to see how we're doing on this one. It's a lot shorter.
Yeah, doing well, Erin. About 65% have participated, so we can give folks just a little bit more time if they'd like to wrap up.
Okay, great. Thank you, Andy. And for those of us perhaps just joining, we're just doing an interactive poll here quickly of which of these do you think is most important when reviewing youth data to understand trends in youth substance use and system involvement, to identify gaps in services and supports, and to really see if the Youth Healing to Wellness Court needs to make adjustments to processes, phases, and the design of the court, or not sure. All right, I think we can go ahead and wrap up. Thank you, Andy. Okay, so not sure yet, did not get any, but to understand trends in youth substance abuse, substance use and system involvement, to identify gaps in services and supports, and the least chosen was to assess whether the Youth Healing to Wellness Court needs to make adjustments. And Judge Pat, the answer to this would be
is for what purpose are you collecting data? I could see all of these answers being right for different reasons. You definitely need to understand your substance use trends if you're applying for a grant, because you're going to have to convince the federal government that you have a problem that needs to be solved. You also may need to do that on the second one, identify your gaps in services to justify what you need to spend money on in your service provision. And then assessing whether what's the rest of the number 3 question? Assess whether the Youth Healing to Wellness Court needs.
Yeah, needs to make adjustments like through the processes, through phases, and the overall design of the court.
Yeah, so you would want to collect, I mean, I could see exit interviews or surveys of parents and youth who are in your wellness court and you want to improve your wellness court process and you're just getting feedback to make it better. So for what purpose are you collecting the data? All 3 of these are right answers. Thank you so much, Erin, for leading us through that. Okay, yes, let's go forward. So I'm going to do kind of a quick move through of the national data here. This information is taken from the 2023 National Survey on Drug Use and Health. It's among American Indian or Alaska Native population age 12 or older. This is an annual household survey, and every year I look for the last year's survey. This is the last one that's up and published for 2023. It's a comprehensive household interview survey. They surveyed about 1,310 American Indian and Alaska Native people by phone, I think. And then they use their answers to estimate what the trends are nationally for this population, age 12 and older. So I'm just going to touch on what the findings are relevant to youth healing to wellness courts. This first figure or graph is looking at what they call past month substance use. So people reported what they used last month in this survey. And I would just note that the top three substances, if we take tobacco out of it, are alcohol, vaping, and marijuana. And I know it says nicotine vaping, but we know today, if you take Chris Questis's street drugs training, that right now most of the vaping is THC vaping and polysubstances. So the survey results are not capturing the extent and the dangers of vaping here in 2023. What else would I tell you about this one? We need to get updated information for 2025 at this point. Okay, so primarily in our wellness courts, we know to be looking for alcohol, vaping, and marijuana. And let's go to the next slide. This figure is looking at past year illicit drug use. So these are illegal, when these substances are illegally used. And this graphic is demonstrating that illicit drug use among American Indian, Alaska Native people aged 12 or older is reported to be about 36.7%. So about almost 37% of American Indian and Alaska Native people 12 and up are reporting illicit drug use. And the top three substances surveyed in 2023 included marijuana, prescription pain relievers, and methamphetamine. I think no one is surprised by the meth. And it used to be that prescription pain relievers were a big problem. Like OxyContin, there was a whole time when it was legal to get those drugs, but you could misuse them. But what this is not capturing today is the use of illicit synthetic opioids like fentanyl. This 2023 data is not capturing all the fentanyl we're seeing and all the polysubstance use we're seeing. And often, why you might ask, are people not reporting using it? Because they don't know that fentanyl is mixed in with their marijuana, their other drugs on the list. Hard to report that you're using it if you don't know it's mixed into your illegal drugs. So these are the kinds of substances we've been seeing, and we just need to add in the fentanyl and the polysubstances. Okay, let's go to the next slide. This one is looking at past year substance use disorder. So now we're not talking about what you used, what drugs you used. We're talking about whether someone's diagnosed a person with an actual substance use disorder and what type. So among American Indians and Alaska Natives aged 12 or older, a little over 25% reported having a substance use disorder. The top three are drug use disorder as a general answer, marijuana use disorder, and alcohol use disorder. If the person answered drug use disorder, they meant either marijuana, cocaine, heroin, hallucinogens, inhalants, methamphetamines, and or prescription drugs. So it must have been the way they designed this interview question. They lumped a whole bunch of drugs together in a question. But it's probably the same top three that we think it is. Again, this is not capturing illicit fentanyl in the 2023 answers for the same reasons. They may not know that it was in there. So why does this matter? Both the juvenile drug treatment court model and the youth healing to wellness court model are designed to work with youth who have a substance use disorder. And the type of drug affects the way you design your youth healing to wellness court. So, and it affects the duration of time or the phases that they're in your court. So, for example, if you had a really bad fentanyl problem in your community, you might need a medication assisted treatment program parallel to your wellness court. And you'd have to ask your clinicians, how long does it take to treat somebody for a fentanyl use disorder? And your treatment providers will say, oh, that's a very specialized kind of treatment. You need a MAT program. Um, we know that for marijuana and alcohol use disorder, it's looking like about 4 months of treatment, but talk to your clinicians to understand how long it takes to treat for that drug and disorder, and then design your wellness court and your wellness court phases based on their answers. So you can see it's pretty important to know what the primary substance or drug use trends are in your community. It helps you with design. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. I won't go into this one in detail, but what this graphic is basically demonstrating is that American Indians and Alaska Natives have the highest drug overdose deaths compared to all the other different groups. And this is data from 2021 and 2022. We definitely have people overdosing at a high rate. This is probably fentanyl, illicit fentanyl, and the implications for our wellness courts are that we need to get people in faster and identify it faster before there's an overdose and get them the interventions they need at a quicker rate. So that data that fentanyl is in your community can be very meaningful for how you design wellness court entry processes. Okay, let's go to the next slide. All right, so what models exist to combat substance use, disorders, and overdose deaths in Indian country? Well, the state-of-the-art models that we know of come from the drug court movement in the States. The tribal version of this are what we call tribal healing to wellness courts. And the version that works with adolescents, we call youth healing to wellness courts. The standards for all of these models on the tribe side are the key components of tribal healing to wellness courts and the best practices of juvenile drug treatment courts. Why am I showing you Western models, you might ask? I kind of have two arguments for this. One is that the therapeutic court movement in the state system, drug courts, are way better than the adversarial court processes that don't offer any kind of therapeutic interventions. So even the Western drug courts are a better model than criminal court and juvenile court alone. And it's worth looking at the model. And then my second argument is that tribes can adapt the model to fit their needs. So if you live in a rural area and you need to adapt it for your rural realities, and for sure, if you want to adapt it for tribal history, culture, language, so that it works with the values, philosophy, and approach of your community, you can do that. My goal here today is just to expose you to the model so you can apply for one of these grants and you can, pilot this in your community. Or if you're a new coordinator or a new staff member in a funded youth healing to wellness court, my hope is that this just gives you a good overview of what the heck is a youth healing to wellness court. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. And I'm going to let Erin jump in and do a polling question here.
All right, thanks, Pat. I also just wanted to say really quickly with regard to, really looking at the data and we have just beautiful, amazing youth that we love, and we are, hoping to support through this specific intervention. And those youth are the youth that would be that we would see representative in the data that we just went through. The high need youth that really need support and might be at the most risk. So just acknowledging from a strength-based perspective too that we love our youth. There's really a lot of healthy youth that have never even had one drink or used anything, but there definitely is a spectrum, and there are youth and kiddos that we love that do need our support and health, and that is why we're here today to show you a specific intervention. Okay, so before today, how familiar were you with youth healing to wellness courts? Please choose the variable from the list that best applies to you. So you feel like you're not familiar. Where do I start? Somewhat familiar, moderately familiar, very familiar. This just helps us to gauge who is with us today in the audience so that we can pipe in with maybe a couple of lived experiences and knowledge to speak to everyone that is here from all your different backgrounds and to get the information that would be most supportive to where you are at in your development of youth healing to wellness court. Okay, Andy, how are we doing?
A little over half, Aaron, have been able to answer, so we can wait just a little bit longer. People would like to take a little bit more time to answer.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Again, just looking at before today, how familiar were you with the youth healing to wellness court model? Please choose what speaks to you. Then I'll just let you wrap it up, Andy. Thank you guys so much for engaging with the poll. It looks like about 18% are not familiar. So glad you guys are here. This is definitely the gathering and the space for you. Somewhat familiar, some details of who and what, but maybe need some more information. This is also the best gathering for you to be at, and so we're so glad you're here. Moderately familiar, you have a basic understanding of the model and you know some things. Great, so glad that you're here with us too. And for those who are moderately familiar or very familiar, if there's any time that you would like to share anything from your experience with your youth healing to wellness court, we would love to hear from you because that really adds to the depth and the insight of this conversation. So please feel free to add anything in the chat. All right, thanks so much, you guys. We'll go ahead and pass it back to Pat.
Okay, so what is the big picture of what is a youth healing to wellness court? So it's a type of therapeutic and cultural intervention in a court system. It's designed for youth who have substance use. Ideally, in the Western system, in drug courts, they're actually looking or working with youth who have substance use disorder. But in Indian country, we're also undertaking wellness court for youth who just have substance use or disorder. The primary goal of a wellness court is to reduce future court involvement, whether it's juvenile or criminal, otherwise known as recidivism. So it's to lower that court involvement. We also, in wellness court, want to build on youth and family strengths and resilience. It's often why you'll see wellness courts, unlike drug courts, tend to use a wraparound case management approach that's much more strength-based. You'll see more weight on the strength-based aspects in a wellness court. Of course, a wellness court is also tribally adapted, tribal culture, history, language, whatever the local adaptations are. Also implemented in a respectful and sensitive manner in working with youth and their families. And not to be forgotten, treatment approaches are also integrated in. wellness courts are really hybrids. They're hybrids of court process, therapeutic approaches, and culture all mixed together. It's not purely a traditional system. It is a Western justice, therapeutic, and cultural hybrid. And there's a lot of room for creativity to integrate tribal worldviews, values, and ways into the process as your team decides to do so. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So I often get asked, what are the long-term goals, the outcome goals of a wellness court? And we can identify 7 of them, which are way more than what a criminal or juvenile court would do. In a wellness court, of course, we want to increase the number of youth who are alcohol and drug free. We want to reduce the amount of state and court involvement in tribal and state courts. We want to increase the number of youth graduating from high school or getting GEDs. But we also want to increase youth's living conditions in a stable, we want to make sure they're living in stable living conditions. We also want to make sure that we are engaging these youth in pro-social activities, including cultural activities. And we want to increase the number of tribal youths participating in job training or employment. And then finally, this is not necessarily something that courts do usually. We want to increase youth and family functioning. So the long run goals of a wellness court are more holistic and they're more ambitious. And we are piloting these all over Indian country to see how much of this can we accomplish at the end of a 5-year grant. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so I mentioned that there were standards for the model, and the standards that we have are the tribal key components. And I'll have Andy upload the 2014 second edition of the current key components. You should know that these are being amended in 2026, or I should say a new version is being put out. In 2026, the version that will be put out is for adult tribal healing to wellness courts. And I anticipate that in 2027, there will be a second publication for youth healing to wellness courts. But for now, we are using this edition until we get the youth specific one. So take a look. You can use it in your grant writing or your team training if you're in a funded wellness court. I would just point out that because this document was originally drafted for adults, we also use the juvenile drug court best practice standards combined with the tribal healing to wellness key components. So it might be worth it to look at those. Feel free to email us at one of the email addresses if you'd like a copy of the juvenile drug treatment court best practice standards. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Polling question. I'm going to hand it over to Erin.
Thank you, Judge Pat. Right now, how would you describe your knowledge of the tribal key components? Please look at the variables in the list, starting with tribal key components. Am I in the right training? The next one, I've heard the term, but I couldn't list them yet. No pop quizzes, please. I know a few and I'm learning how it fits together. I know it's the model for a youth healing to wellness court. The next variables, I could explain them with notes. Hey, we're all learning here. And the last one, I could teach this with my eyes closed. I'll take it from here. Judge Pat, you are silly doing this. This is great. Love Indian humor. All right, again, right now, how would you describe your knowledge of the tribal key components? Please choose the variable, click on it, and then we'll see with the poll here what you guys are all thinking. And again, this really helps us to gauge who's in the audience and helps us to best present the slides in a meaningful way to everyone who is involved here today. Andy, I'll check in with you and see how it's going.
We are doing great, Erin. We've got about 71% participants, and so we can give it just a little bit longer and we can wrap up.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Thank you guys all for sharing with us. And we'll go ahead and okay. It looks like I know a few and I'm learning how it fits together. It had 41, had the highest percentage. Looks like we had some people saying, they've heard of it, they've heard of the model maybe, but still in that very learning process. The two people that are like, am I in the right meeting? Okay, love that you are honest and that you're like, I really am here to understand and grow in my knowledge and skill of what a youth healing to wellness court is. And yeah, you could explain them with notes nearby. We had about 3 people. And then the one person, wow. Well, the one person says they could teach it with their eyes closed. And I know that wasn't Judge Pat. So great. Thank you guys all so much. I will pass it back to Judge Pat now. Thank you.
I wish I could take credit for the polling questions, but I'm going to have to give the credit to Ashley, who put together our polling questions. I am not near as much fun as that, although I try. So I've been looking at the drug court key components and later the healing to wellness court key components for 30 years. And I keep looking at them and reading them and needing them and trying to figure out a simple way to talk about them. And I decided to do it by function. So these gray boxes are the most important key components. And in the green, I give you the numbers that relate to them. But I'm really just going to give you a quick skim of the functions. So if you have a fully implemented wellness court following the model, this is what it would look like. You would have at the top of the circle here, you'd have a process for getting reporting, referral, diversion, or transfer of youth to your wellness court, either from your own tribal court and or from the local county juvenile courts around you. So if you have that process, you've got key component 2. You then would need a screening and assessment process to do both clinical and legal screening of youth to see if they're eligible and will benefit from your wellness court. Legal screening is screening out violent offenders because you can't use your federal dollars under CTAS Purpose Area 8 on participants who meet the definition of a violent offender. And there's a federal statute I'll tell you about in a bit. The clinical screening is for substance use disorder and mental health disorders and for trauma. And then there's another risk screening that often happens here under key component 3. They call it an RNR, risk need responsivity. And they're looking at a youth's what they call criminogenic risk and criminogenic need. You don't have to memorize that or know that right now. All you need to know is screening and assessment is the next thing you do here on the circle. So that's key component 3. Key component 5 is wellness or case management, depending on how you label it in your system. These are plans and management of your treatment and your case plan that happens by a case manager or a wellness manager in your system. Very important part of wellness court. How do you get them what you need and manage what they need if you're not doing case management? Key component 5 also requires in a wellness court random alcohol and drug testing. And it's usually courts that are enhancing that are doing this level of all the key components, but you should also be looking at it when you first implement. Moving around the circle to phases and treatment plans, wellness courts and drug courts use phases where it's like the first month and then the next 2 months and then the next 2 months. There's usually about 4 phases in a wellness court, and it includes both the treatment plan requirements for a youth, but also all the other activities, maybe their cultural activities, pro-social activities, other things that are also requirements for the youth that are put into a plan for that youth as they move through the wellness court. That's key components 1, 4, and 5. And then you might ask, well, where is the court in this wellness court? Well, the wellness court docket is made up of recurring team meetings and status hearings. And because wellness courts are collaborative, they're interdepartmental, there's a team of professionals working with a youth, monitoring their progress, getting them the help they need, and they meet weekly to figure that out. They also apply incentives to youth who are doing well, and those are handed out in the status hearings, the weekly or maybe every other week status hearings in a wellness court. Those hearings are not like the adversarial process in criminal court, for example. So they are not based on the rules of evidence. They're not using the criminal rules of procedure. They're non-adversarial. These are therapeutic hearings. And the judge does something really different in these hearings. They're more like a mentor or a coach. And the team is also in those hearings supporting the youth. Okay, so at the end of a youth's participation in wellness court, if they progress all the way through the phases, they graduate, they go home, there's no court record, they're done, and hopefully they're in a better place with their substance use and their families. If they don't engage or if they reoffend, then they may be terminated by the team from the wellness court, and then they go back to the juvenile court in the tribal or the state system. So just stepping back away from the key components, it's really a process that has key components, key processes that make up a collaborative, communicating team of professionals who work with youth to get them what they need and get them better, and also keep them out of the court system. Okay, I'm just going to pause there from 1 minute. Are there any questions or comments that you can just put it in the chat box. And I'll wait a second. Does this pop up? Anything on the key components you might have a question or comment about? And by the way, to the TYRC staff and the Youth Healing to Wellness Court TAs, feel free to comment or ask questions too as I move through this. Okay, I'm not seeing anything. So Andy, why don't you move us to the next slide? Okay, so because this is a 101 on youth healing to wellness courts, and there's a possibility I might have some tribal judges or tribal attorneys in here, or even tribal council persons, I just wanted to, for a moment, point out that this is a new court docket. It's not your classic adversarial tribal court dockets. The light blue boxes on the top here represent kind of the Western adversarial court dockets that we've inherited from the federal government, and also we may have copied it from state government. And those are the delinquency docket, right? Looking at juvenile offenses. The dependency docket is child maltreatment, and the criminal docket is crimes. We all watch Law and Order on TV, and we have some idea of how that adversarial process looks and works. And it's certainly punitive from our point of view. These new wellness court dockets are creating a new kind of court process represented here by the dark blue rectangle. And they follow the key components in their process, not the rules of evidence or the rules of criminal procedure. And so I just wanted to distinguish that because it may be that your wellness court team might need some code reform in the wellness court. They may need a juvenile court. They may be missing the blue box, the delinquency docket, and they may need a little bit of code to create that. And you might say, why would you do that? Because it's going to create a way to push cases down to the blue rectangle. And also the blue rectangle may need a little bit of code as well to establish and empower that judge and that team. Okay. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So the wellness court process is a lot like the key component functions I've already shown you. I guess what I would point out in the detail figure here is the yellow box to the left. So remember that I said that wellness courts have phases, and it has like the treatment plan, the case plan, the cultural activities. The yellow box is just an example of things you can add into the phases for youth. You can have restorative practices. You can have elders and mentors. You can have tribal history classes, other kinds of tribal education or activities and skills building. I think of subsistence in Alaska, hunting, fishing, gathering, also beading, sewing, whatever people do in your community that is meaningful and important and skills building, that is value laden, that comes from your worldview or philosophy. These are things you get creative and you design and you put in the phases for wellness court. You can choose to give youth choices about which things they want in their phases from the yellow box. There are also sometimes it's a support group, sometimes it's a treatment modality, but there's native tribally adapted support groups and modalities that you can use. Sometimes they're called tribally adapted evidence-based practices. This can be counseling groups, workbooks. You can use these in your phases if you have access to those resources. Email us if you want to know more about what we know about the yellow box. Okay, so I think that's all I'm going to say about the detailed wellness court process. It's open to creativity. Okay, let's go ahead and go forward to the next slide. For those folks that are brand new to wellness court, I wanted to talk a little bit about who the model is designed to serve. And you'll see in the blue is the key component for tribes, and in the green is the juvenile drug court best practice. The juvenile drug court best practices are based on research with youth nationally who are in drug courts, or their youth with substance use issues and disorders. So the model was originally designed to work with youth who have a substance use disorder, who are 14 years and up, usually up to the age of 21, who have a moderate to high risk of reoffending. So they're already court involved. And so the model would recommend that your eligibility criteria be for these youth. Substance use disorder, 14 years or older, moderate to high risk of reoffending, meaning they're already court involved. So that's a smaller cohort of youth than all your youth who are using substances. And if you go to the next slide, Andy, I can just kind of show that with the funnel. Can we go to the next slide? Okay, great. So I'm just pointing out with this graphic that you don't admit all youth who use substances, right? You're screening out violent offenders. You may have an age range. We know in Indian country, we tend to require or design our services for youth who are tribal members, who are descendants of tribal members, or who are eligible for tribal membership. So your wellness court team will come up with your eligibility criteria, and it may include more than what I've got here on the right-hand side. One big point to make is that if you're applying for a CTAS grant, CTAS Purpose Area 8 funds cannot be used for providing services to violent offenders. So you will want to be sure to clarify that you're not intending to use the money in that way. Okay. Let's go ahead and move to the next slide. So this is a little bit of the Advanced Youth Healing to Wellness Court grid here. And I just pointed out because if you're applying for a grant, you might want to think about how you're collecting your data here. Tribes have been able to use their CTAS money for wellness court for different groups of youth, and we call them track 1, track 2, and track 3. And the gist of it is that you have high risk, high need youth in track 1. They need a lot of like probation-based supervision. They also need substance use and mental health treatment. They have more services and more supervision in the phases because they're high risk, high need. Track 2 youth are actually what they call low risk, high need. That means that they're not court involved, but they may have substance use disorder, they may have mental health disorder, and they need a lot of help, but they don't need a lot of supervision. And so you would design the phases with less monitoring for this track 2 group. Track 3 are high risk. They've been court involved. They're likely to be very court involved going forward, but they're low need. They don't have a substance use disorder at all. They may be using substances, but they wouldn't be diagnosed with a disorder. They need a lot of supervision and they do need case management, but they're not going to need treatment. So you would design a different kind of set of phase requirements for track 3 youth. There is a track 4. These are the low risk, low need youth. These are youth have no court involvement, no substance use disorder. They may be experimenting with marijuana or alcohol, but they are not diagnosed with any disorders at all. These youth should be diverted from any court process at all because it is harmful to move them into a court process and to mix them with higher risk youth. Indeed, you cannot use your CTAS Purpose Area 8 funding for track 4. And these youth, the best thing you can do for track 4 kids is to do prevention and education. You might take a look at CTAS Purpose Area 9. That is the Tribal Youth Program. But these kids should not be in a wellness court under track 4. Okay, let me just check in and see if there's any questions about the tracks here or CTAS Purpose Area 8 and 9 funding. Do any of the TAs have any questions on behalf of the room that you can see they might have? I may have put you all to sleep.
We're awake. No, I don't see anything in the chat, Judge Pat, and it may be, a set aside training or a follow-up, as to what youth might need in these various tracks or a multi-track and how to get started. So I have put in the chat our emails, and if you have a particular need, you can fill out the TA request and we'll make sure to follow up with you.
Thank you, Ashley. Okay, let's go ahead and go forward to the next slide. That was the hardest that this presentation gets. So we got over the technical stuff. In the off chance that I might be talking to my fellow tribal judges or attorneys, I just wanted to say a brief bit about how youth healing to wellness court hearings are really different. And they're different because we want them to be strength-based, trauma-informed, and they use incentives for the most part instead of sanctions. Let's go to the next slide real quick. So, if you have a youth healing to wellness court, I am hoping that we will have trained you to use a courtroom protocol that is really different. Um, this protocol will prioritize focusing on youth and families who have done really well in the last week, the week before the hearing. So they may have had 100% negative drug tests. They might have had perfect attendance in treatment or perfect attendance in school. And you are literally using that hearing to say, we see you, we acknowledge your progress, good job, keep it up. The judge is doing this as like a coach, a mentor, and a supporter, and you're using the hearing process to reinforce the youth so they progress to their goals, but also, and by rewarding them, you're changing their conduct because they'll keep doing positive things to get the positive reinforcement. Okay, let's go to the next slide here. So there are all kinds of little special tricks that you can use. Just as an example, here is a rocket docket, rewarding those youth who did really well in the last week.
Tiki Tunes ready? Tiki Tunes connected.
Yes, not sure why we have that background, but we will keep going. So in these kinds of rocket dockets where youth have really done well last week, the judge is asking them why they get to go first. Have them reflect on the great things they've been doing and the progress they're making. And then the judge has strength-seeking conversations with the youth where they talk about the youth's goals, where they set goals for themselves in the beginning, identifying their strengths, their interests, their hopes, their visions. Um, and then if there are difficulties or challenges, the case manager after the hearing can follow up with them on what's getting in the way of their goals. And if there are sanctions, that's where it would happen, not in the hearing process. So this is shockingly different than a trial or a hearing where you sanction somebody or sentence somebody. It's totally different focus. Okay, let's go to the next slide. The other thing that wellness courts do is they use incentives. And I just put a picture from Hopi. I'm Hopi. And this is a basket dance. We still do these every year. It's really fun. You go, if you're in the community or in the crowd, you're just waiting for somebody to throw presents at you. And if you're lucky, you catch a beautiful basket and not a bottle of toilet cleaner or a can of beans or something. But it's really fun. I'm just pointing out that gifting is part of our traditional systems, right? We already incentivize and discourage bad behavior in our traditional systems. At Hopi, we use clowns that will act very badly and they will get punished in front of everybody. So we all know what is bad behavior. Think about how your traditional systems can get worked in to your incentive system, and you can tailor your system. Let's go to the next slide. I'm just going to do a time check here. Okay, we're okay. There are a whole bunch of different ways to do incentives in a wellness court. And I'm just hoping to bend your brain away from sanctions and sentences to incentives. And that you can be really creative in tailoring this in your system too. The most common, easy way to do incentives is through what they call a fishbowl. A native fishbowl is just a raffle. Youth do good things. Somebody notices it. They give them a little nomination card, which is a ticket for their good behavior. It gets put in a fishbowl. And in the weekly status hearing or at a weekly event, the team will draw out the tickets and they get a chance to win prizes. There can be small, medium, and large prizes. But the point is, you're using some kind of incentive system to reward positive or encouraged behavior. And ideally, you've thought ahead as a team and you've designed incentives that youth actually want that will motivate them to do good things. You can run parallel systems of incentives. Like you could do it for individual youth based on things they actually would choose for themselves as incentives on top of a fishbowl. There's so many ways to do this. But what I hope you get from today is this is a really different kind of court, really different kind of court hearings, really different kinds of mechanisms for getting people to change behavior, most importantly, to pursue their goals, to identify their goals and pursue them, and to get reinforcement. Okay, one more slide on prizes. Yeah, sure. Share your incentives if you already have a wellness court in the chat. It's always really cool to see what you are doing. Thanks, Eva. So I mentioned some of this. Your actual prizes should be designed to motivate youth. Ask them what they want, because the prizes we think of as adults are always wrong. We always want things that are really not what they want. You're reinforcing things with incentives like going to school every day, moving toward your goals, staying abstinent. And I would add here that it's really hard to give incentives if you don't notice the good things they're doing. Sure, they're having a hard time, but maybe they're increasingly doing better. Maybe they're going to school 3 days a week instead of not at all. It's not 5 days a week, but hey, it's incentivizable progress. So we as a team have to notice it. You can also reinforce cultural engagement and participation, incorporating native language in the prizes themselves, um, enhancing the daily living of youth with substance use in their family. They may have a lot of like basic needs that could be prizes. You know, I'm trying to just off the top of my head, toothpaste, toothbrushes, makeup, things that they need. So you would ask them, what are kinds of things that you could really use that could be a prize? Anything that supports their self-care or their family's self-care. And you can have prizes that engage families and community, like a night at a local restaurant for the whole family, a gift certificate, all kinds of things you can think of here. And I'm just looking at Eva's comment, puzzles, board games, beaded jewelry. I would love that incentive. Crocheted items. Yeah, very cool. This is the fun part of wellness court, the positive part, the feel good part. It feels so different than criminal court process or juvenile court process. Okay, big breath. Let's look at the takeaways. Slide 38, please. You have survived Youth Healing to Wellness Court 101. What I hope you take away from this presentation, there were a lot of things on the list here. Let me jump to number 8 as a starting point. Andy, can you upload the NOFO for CTAS from last year? I am asking Andy to give you a copy of the OJJDP CTAS Notice of Funding Opportunity. This is the solicitation to apply for CTAS Purpose Area 8 money from fiscal year 25. This is last year's NOFO. Why am I giving you last year's NOFO? Because this year's NOFO is not available yet. And it will be coming out. Watch for it from OJJDP in the next few months. It will be coming out. But if you want to see last year's, just to get a general idea, take a look at what Andy just uploaded in the chat. Okay, what else do I hope that you would take away? I want to acknowledge that if you're designing a wellness court today, you really need to be thinking about alcohol, THC, and polysubstances, including fentanyl. That's our challenge. That's what we need to work with our treatment providers to manage in our communities. The Youth Healing to Wellness Court model is really designed to work with older adolescents, 14 and up, who either have substance use or substance use disorder and who are court involved. That's track one. You can use your money for tracks 2 and 3 as well. You just need to include track 1 in addition. Let's see, what else should you get out of this? I've talked about tracks. We follow the key components of tribal healing to wellness courts. It creates a new kind of therapeutic court docket. And the hearings in wellness court are really different. They're non-adversarial, they're strength-based, and they connect judges with youth like a coach or a mentor. And we give out incentives in court, which is weird, but very fun and useful. And then finally, if you haven't done so, think about applying for CTAS Purpose Area 8. Thank you so much for spending time with us today to do the 101 of Wellness Court. And I think I'm turning it back over to Ashley at this point.
Well, thank you everyone for hanging in there with us, and I hope that you left with new knowledge. But we do have an evaluation. We'd love to know how we've been doing and, kicking us off in a good way for this year. Please take the evaluation. It does support our funding. There's just a few questions. It'll take about 2 minutes. And if you have any unanswered questions, please use the chat box or email us directly, and I'll make sure to put that back in the chat. And thank you everyone for being here. We will close in a good way and send you off to wherever you might be. And also please keep a lookout for all of our other presentations as well. We have a number of national trainings, and we hope that you apply for this funding. It proves positive outcomes. And thank you, Chris. Yes, Chris Questis is actually our Youth Healing and Wellness Court consultant. And he's saying if anyone is interested in street drug education, we've broken it down to 5 different modules. Yes, 5, and can specify to your needs. Wonderful, thank you. And it looks like a few more are still taking the survey, just to let us know how we did. And of course, it's part of our funding. And thank you everyone adding to the chat. And on your screen, you'll also see a number of resources. You will get this PowerPoint emailed to you along with the recording. And so feel free to click on those links or just simply copy the text and paste it into Google or wherever you like to go, like Bing. And just a few more will be taking the eval here. And Andy, when you see that it's fully done, you could go ahead and close out. And Chris is going to close this out in a good way once we have exited this screen.
And actually, I can actually leave this evaluation up if folks still want to complete it as we're closing out.
Amazing. Thank you. All right, Chris, I'll hand it to you.
Thank you so much. I did not get the chance to share with you today, but I do want to thank the creator for having the opportunity to be able to speak with everyone and have this special time. We do sincerely hope that you apply for the Youth Healing and Wellness Court during this funding opportunity that will be released in a very short time. I want to thank Ashley and Judge P and Aaron and Andy for their time in developing this presentation for you. And we hope that you sign into the other scheduled sessions that we have. And we know that there's bad weather coming throughout the country, and we want everyone to be extremely safe and be very careful out there. And we're looking really forward to meeting with you at a later time. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your commitment. And like Aaron said earlier, just thanking you for the opportunity to work with your tribal youth and making your community a healthier and a safe place. So enjoy the rest of your day, and we appreciate everyone joining us. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And thank you everyone for joining us today. And a special thanks to all of our presenters and speakers today. Just one final announcement before we wrap up that one, you can contact us at what you see listed here on the screen. And then also we will be sharing these materials out post meeting. You will receive the recording, the PowerPoint, as well as the items that we shared in the chat today. Thank you again for joining us, and hope everyone has a great day. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Stay warm where you are.